was left from the destruction in Europe. And yet, when I was there, I recognized them. I knew these are my grandparents. They gave me love and I gave them love, and we were so joyous to be together. I'm gone again. I'm in my third place to visit in the other dimension. And now I'm in front of a court of judges, 17 years old. I was not afraid. The judges were very kind. They calmed me down, they reassured me. I was feeling good and accepted. And in front of these judges, I got to see my life review. The life review is a very common element of near-death experiences. 50% of people who reported an NDE, a near-death experience, tell us that they had a life review. The life review is like watching the movie of a person's entire life. It's our own movie. So Eli is now watching his own movie. But the difference between watching a movie and a screen and watching our own life review is that in the life review, we feel all the feelings. When you're watching a movie, you could say, who cares? It's just a movie, or it's whatever, it's somebody else. This is not somebody else, this is me. And this is my story. And as I'm watching my life review, says Ellie, I am feeling every emotion that was there in my life. Not just from my perspective, but mostly from the perspective of everyone else I had interactions with. I saw and I felt in my core how I made people feel. From my early childhood, I saw how I made my mother and father feel, my sisters, my classmates in school, my teachers, my neighbors, random people I saw in a supermarket, or in a parking lot, or in a doctor's office. All the people close to me and people that I had one-time encounter. I felt all that. And Ellie says, lucky for me, I was a nice guy. Because I don't want to know what it feels like when you were not a nice guy. Everything happens to you. And he says, some things were highlighted. One of the things that was most highlighted was something that happened to me in school. In my school, there were bullies. The bullies were terrifying the younger and weaker children. Ellie says, I stood up against the bullies to protect the younger and weaker children. That they showed me, look, Ellie, that's the best thing you did. Now, it's only 17 years. The life review is over. The movie's finished. And Ellie's standing there in front of the judges like, what happened? And Ellie says, I started to scream. But what about my parents? What about my sisters? I'm only 17 years old. There is so much I wanted to do with my life. And as he screams those words, he blinks and he opens his eyes and he's in the airport. There is so much I wanted to do with my life. And he opens his eyes, he's back in the airport. And he's in shock. Nobody realized what happened. He gets up from the chair and he starts to walk around. Some things were different. You know that people have an energy field around them that's called an aura? All of a sudden, Ellie says, for the first and only time in my life, I see everyone's auras. Most auras were red. There was a man in the airport whose aura was dark and very black. And then there was a tiny little old man, a Yemenite Jew, who had this beautiful silver light aura that looked like an incredible light. Nobody sees this except for Ellie, and only that day when he just came back from the other side. One of the other teenagers comes over to Ellie and says, Ellie, what just happened to you, don't tell anybody. Maybe many years from now, but now you cannot share. And so Eli tells me, I never told anyone except for my rabbi, my wife, and today you. Now, he told this to me maybe 10 years ago, and the experience happened during the Yom Kippur War. So a long time had passed from the time he was 17. Eli says, I wondered if I had a dream or if I had hallucinated due to the pills. But then I remembered when I was not able to breathe and how I was next to the ceiling above my body. And not only that, says Eli, when I was in the other world, that felt like home. That world felt like the real life, the real world. When I came back to this world felt like the dream. And that world felt like the real thing. When people have a near-death experience and they are going from here to there, their thought is usually, I'm going home. Mm-hmm. So he says, that was home and real, and this world felt like a dream. Okay, so fast forward, Eli says, so my friend left eventually, and I finished high school. I came back to America. I went to college. I got a degree. I upgraded my Jewish observance. So he grew up traditional Jewish. He didn't tell me, but I think that he was keeping Shabbat and kosher. But he says, I upgraded my Jewish observance, and I moved to Israel. Got married, raised a family, and he says, today, I have an office, I have a business, successful. My friends make fun of me. My friends, says Eli, tell me, Eli, stay a little longer in your office and make a little more money. You are always running around helping people. Why are you doing that? If you stay a little longer in your office instead of running around helping others, you will make more money. And I smile and I don't tell them anything. But I know, because I was there, that every mitzvah I do is a precious diamond that lasts forever. Every person I help, every charity I give is my treasure that is waiting for me in the other side. How could I give that up for a few more dollars? Okay, so now we are going to see a scientific view. I know the stories are more fun, but a little bit of a scientific view of near-death experiences. The first published book about near-death experiences, which are not a new thing, they've always existed. They're recorded in the Talmud. We'll get to that soon. The first book on near-death experiences was Life After Life by Raymond Moody. It's a good book, published in 1975, around the same time when Eli was having this experience. In those days, even though there were many people who had NDEs, nobody would tell you their story. Because, like another woman that I spoke to who also had a near-death experiences in the 1970s, she told me that she was walking past a construction also in Israel, and she said a beam fell from the 4th floor right onto her head, hit her on the head, and she fell dead on the ground. She had an experience and came back and told her boyfriend, and her boyfriend said, shh, don't tell anybody. If you tell people you went to another world and you saw a loving light and you saw this and that, they're going to think that the blow to your head made you crazy, and they're going to lock you up. So don't tell. So for years, people were hiding the NDEs. Okay, so what happens is Dr. Raymond Moody heard about these experiences, maybe from 1 or 2 patients, and he decided he's going to do the research. So he interviewed many, many people, of which 100 reported an NDE. He assured them, nobody will think there's something wrong with your brain, nobody's going to lock you up, you are safe, tell me your story. And from those 100 stories, he put together his book. In his book, he talks about the hovering over the body, the travel through the tunnel, the life review, the importance of kindness, how people are not judged by someone else but judge themselves as watching their life reviews, and so on. So that was the first and very valuable information from a scientific perspective. Now, Dr. Raymond Moody, when he was interviewing all those people, and he got information from these 100 patients, he made sure that the patients did not know about each other, and they did not talk to each other, so that they would not share notes. So the information is very impartial and objective, as every patient, was speaking about their own experience only. In the 1990s, there were two doctors, cardiologists, who also were curious about NDEs, and they conducted the same experiment. Dr. Michael Savom from Atlanta, Georgia, which is where I live right now, and Dr. Pim van Lommel from Holland. They, independently from each other, interviewed patients who had experienced cardiac arrest. And one of them had 345 patients who had cardiac arrest over the course of a year, and the other one had 200. Anyways, about 20% approximately of the people who had been dead and came back to life reported an experience to these doctors. And it was very similar. It was very, very consistent about people talking about hovering over the body, going through the tunnel, and so on. The experience was very, very consistent. So we have nowadays many sources from physicians, cardiologists, psychiatrists, and so on, who have conducted such research. I myself spoke to she's not a neurologist, she's a neuroscientist. One time I gave the same talk in Los Angeles, in Beverly Hills, and when I finished, this woman came over to me and she said, I am a neuroscientist. I can give you the entire explanation of what happens to the brain during the death process, and I can explain it to you scientifically. However, I know that near-death experiences are true because my mom had one. So she said her mother was walking down the street, and she experienced a heart attack and fell dead in the middle of the sidewalk. And she said her mother was hovering high up above the trees, looking down at her body. And then she was sent back into it. So she says, I know that these things are true. Now, from a Jewish wisdom perspective, there is at least one NDE recorded in the Talmud. It's in the tractate Pesachim, page 50. It's the story of Rabbi Yossi, the son of Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi. So this young Rabbi Yossi, God forbid, got very sick, and his father was next to his bed, and the father noticed that that his son had died. And in those days they used to check. You're not allowed, in Jewish law, you're not allowed to touch somebody who is in the dying process, because touching them could accelerate death. So they used to check if somebody had passed by putting a feather in front of their nose and seeing if the feather would move. They were breathing. Anyways, Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi saw that Rabbi Yossi had died, and he remained next to the bed praying, and not much time passed when the son came back to life and opened his eyes. Being a Torah scholar, Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi did not miss the opportunity to ask his son, so what did you see? He wanted to learn from his son's experience. Where did you go? What happened? What did you see? He said, in the other world where I visited, he said, it's an upside down world. Those who are up here are not up there, and those who are down here, some of them who are down here are up there. Meaning there are people in this world who are very honored because of their positions, which could be political, or they could be a movie star, or they could be a sports star, and they are honored and respected, but what they accomplished in this world is insignificant in the other world. And then you have people like this grandmother who maybe nobody paid attention to, but she devoted her life to helping others and doing good. So she would be all on the top in that world. So that's what he said. I arrived there and I saw an upside down world. Things were the opposite way as here. And then he said, I heard a voice. The voice said, Ashrei mi sheba lekan v'talmudo b'yado. Lucky is whoever gets here and his learning is in his hand, meaning that they spend a lot of time acquiring wisdom and knowledge, and they get to bring their learning with them to the afterlife. So that's what we get from this Talmudic sage. Then there is another experience about Rabbi Kruspedai, who also died, and his experience is recorded in the Zohar Chadash, in the section of Megillat Ruth. And Rabbi Kruspedai says he was also in his deathbed, and he was not so young, and his friends, the other sages, came to be with him at this time because he was very ill, and they surrounded his bed. They witnessed him passing away and then coming back to life. Again, rabbis want to know. So they asked him, why did they send you back? And he said, when I got to the other world, they looked at me and they said, we're sending you back for two reasons. One is that you are ma'avir al midot. That means in the Talmud lingo, it means a person who's very forgiving. It is the nature of humans that when somebody hurts us or causes us damage or steals our money or does whatever inconvenience to us, that is very hard to forgive. So forgiving is going beyond our human nature. And it is very, very precious in the afterlife. So this rabbi said, my life was extended due to the fact that while I was alive, I was extremely forgiving and I did not hold grudges against anyone, much less take revenge, God forbid, which is forbidden in the Torah. The second thing they said about me is we're sending him back because his life is full of Torah and prayer. He spent his whole life learning Torah and praying. And so they sent him back and he got to live a good number of extra years. Now, I'm now analyzing and thinking about this Torah, I think, but there are so many other sages who also have a life full of Torah and prayer, right? So I guess there are exceptions, but I do know that forgiveness is very great in that world. Now let me expand on the forgiveness issue. You see, when you are watching your life review, God is not judging you. You are judging yourself. So if you are in the habit of looking at others and judging them in a very positive way, then when it comes to your turn to judge yourself, you already have the habit of always judging others for the good and finding excuses for whatever they did wrong and finding whatever they did right as amazing. So then when you get in that habit, when you get there, you bring your habits with you. And so when you're judging yourself, you have a benefit because you're judging everyone favorably. You're going to judge yourself favorably too. So being a forgiving person is very powerful. Before we break for questions, there are a couple other stories that I wanted to share with you because they each one bring a very specific message. And I believe that I was destined to hear these stories in order to share them with others, of course. You know, like birthday cake? Mm-hmm. Birthday cake is given to you, but it's for sharing with everyone else. You don't need the whole birthday cake. So these stories, I believe that I was lucky to get to hear these stories so that I could share them with everyone else, like cake. So one Saturday night, there was a dinner in the Chabad Center in Toronto, where I was living years ago. And this rabbi, who was a Toronto rabbi, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Glukovsky, had moved to Israel and opened a Chabad Center in Rehovot. And every year he came back to Toronto to visit his mom. So on this Saturday night dinner, he was the guest speaker. And he said a lot of things. One of them I remember because it's an amazing story. Rabbi Glukovsky says, I was minding my business in my Chabad Center in Rehovot when an elderly lady came to speak to me. Her name is Sarah. And Sarah was English speaking. She had made Aliyah. She moved to Israel. And she comes and says to me, Rabbi Glukovsky, I want to go to a Torah class. But this is Israel and all the Torah classes are in Hebrew. I don't speak Hebrew. But you speak English. So Rabbi, would you please give a Torah class in English so I get to understand? And the rabbi took a deep breath, stroked his beard and said, Sarah, if you organize the class, I will teach it, okay? Deal. So Sarah went and she called all the English speakers she knew, which were quite a few, and she organized a Torah class. Let's say it was Mondays at 7:30 p.m. And every Monday at 7:30, all the English speakers came, and Rabbi Glukovsky gave them a beautiful Torah class in English. And this went on for years. The people became friends with each other. They became close to the rabbi. They had their own Hanukkah party and their own Purim party. And the years went by. Beautiful. Until one day, Sarah came to the rabbi and said, Rabbi, I came to say goodbye. Oh, Sarah, where are you going? I need to move. I'm moving to Tel Aviv. I've got 2 olds to live alone. I'm moving to Tel Aviv to be next to my son. He will help me. Oh, Sarah, we will miss you. Okay, keep in touch, all right? Good luck. And Sarah left. And Rabbi never heard of her for 2 years. Not a word for 2 years. 2 years later, his phone rings. There is a man. Says, hello, is this Rabbi Glukovsky? Yes, it is. Who's calling? I'm Sarah's son. He said the last name, but I don't remember. I'm Sarah's son. Oh, how is your mom? Silence. The mom had been in a coma for 2 days in the hospital. The son says to the rabbi, Rabbi, my mother just opened her eyes after 2 days. And she asked for you. Rabbi, would you please come and see my mom? And then the son explained to the rabbi that the doctor said they did not think the old lady would survive the night. So he better come now. So the rabbi turns to his secretary and says, cancel all my appointments for the rest of the day, jumps in his car, drives to Tel Aviv, gets to the hospital, barges into the intensive care unit because he's a rabbi and he can. And he comes into the room and there is a very, very frail old lady. And when she sees him, she lights up. Oh, Rabbi Glukovsky, thank you for coming. And the rabbi looks at Sarah and says, Sarah, how are you feeling? And she goes, feeling, schwilling, who cares? Rabbi, over the past 2 days, I have been to the other world and back. Okay, so he's quiet, he's just listening, he doesn't know what to make of it. And she says, Rabbi, in the other world, they showed me my crown. I have a beautiful crown in the other side. The crown is, of course, made of my good deeds. The centerpiece stone in my crown is the Torah class in English that I organize and you teach. I wanted to ask you, Rabbi, please don't stop the Torah class in English. Now the rabbi was dying. He says, what is this? I never heard of such a thing. And when the rabbi composed himself, he said, okay, Sarah, I as long as people come to this class, I will continue giving the Torah class in English. And he did. And he left. And the next morning, he heard that Sarah had passed. And she gave us this incredible gift to know what happens when you attend a Torah class, when you organize a Torah class, when you help others go to a Torah class. So amazing. Rabbi Gajzinski is a Chabad rabbi. He was very sick a number of years ago, and many people were praying for him every day, saying Tehillim and praying for him. And then he had a heart attack. He had many different health conditions, and then he had a heart attack. His heart attack was off the charts because he had no heart function for 40 minutes. That's 40 minutes. And the doctor who was doing the resuscitation efforts after he was brought to the hospital said, we never go past 15 minutes or 20 minutes most of resuscitation efforts, because we know that it's not possible for a person to come back to life after that many minutes. And even if the patient did come back to life, they would be a vegetable without brain function. But the doctor in charge of the resuscitation was a member of Rabbi Gajzinski's community. He went to his Chabad center. He says, I just could not get myself to go out of the room and tell his family that there was nothing else I could do. So I kept going. In the meantime, Rabbi Gajzinski, when he came back, he says he didn't want to tell the story to anyone of what happened to him. But first he told one of his sons, and he told his son, don't tell anyone. Did you ever hear of a story that somebody told somebody not to tell anyone? So eventually I found out in the other side of the continent. So at the beginning he wouldn't tell. He told all his son, then he told his family, then he told some friends, and then the story got out. Apparently there are still some secrets that he has not shared with all of us. One day we will know. But he says when his heart stopped, he said, when my heart stopped, an entity came to pick me up. And he identified himself as Malach Michael, the Archangel Michael. And he says, I am Malach Michael, and I came to pick you up and take you. We're going together. Okay, says the rabbi. Cool, let's go. So they go flying up, and this rabbi got the royal tour. I have interviewed about 150 people who had a near-death experience. And I have read accounts of thousands of people who had a near-death experience. This one is the only one that I know that had such a story. He says the angel took him, and they went, and the angel took him to visit special sightseeing places. Well, that's what I'm calling them. They went, and he says, we visited the palace of Moshe, our teacher, who gave us the Torah, who took us out of Egypt. And he saw what happens there. He didn't tell me. I don't know what happens there, but I can assure you it's pretty good. And then he took me to see the palace of Aaron, his brother, the first high priest. And then we went to see the palaces and beautiful places of incredible light from the sages of the Talmud, the Mishnah, and the Gemara sages. I don't think every one of them, but some selected ones. And then since he is a Chassid of Chabad, he said he took me to the palace of the Baal Shem Tov, and then I saw the palaces of the Chabad Rebbes, the first Rebbe, the second Rebbe, the third Rebbe, the fourth. And then the angel stops. And he looks at me and he says, we have to go. They are waiting for us in the heavenly court. We are not allowed to keep them waiting. Okay? So whatever the angel said, he said, fine. Okay, so they go and they come into the heavenly court, And again, this is very extraordinarily unusual. The heavenly court judges turn to Rabbi Gazinski and say to him, we don't know what to do with you. What do you think? You want to stay here or you want to go back there? Okay, so Rabbi Gazinski says, I never made a major decision without asking my Rebbe.
Not wife, just the Rebbe?
Just the Rebbe. Well, the Rebbe and the wife, but the wife wasn't available then. So he says, I never made a major decision without asking the Rebbe. And as he said those words, the Rebbe came in. Because in that world, everything is instant, more instant than your coffee. It just happens. The Rebbe came in. As the Rebbe came in, the entire heavenly court rose to give him respect. And the Rebbe looked at Rabbi Gazinski, who is a Chabad rabbi with a Chabad center, and said, I started the work to bring Mashiach to the world. And then the Rebbe pointed at Rabbi Gazinski, who was in the dying process, but his soul is up there, pointed at him and said, he is my soldier in the work to bring Mashiach to the world. I need him down there.
Wow.
With those words, the heavenly court declared, they used the full name of Rabbi Gazinski, and they called him by his name and his mother's name, like we say when we give a blessing. And they said, so-and-so's son of so-and-so is going back to the world. And he came back after 40 minutes of cardiac arrest.
Wow.
Now, another time that I gave this talk to a different audience, one of the members of and I didn't know the details of this story of Rabbi Gazinski then, but one of the members of the audience was Rabbi Gazinski's close friend and his personal lawyer. And he said to me when I finished speaking, I'll tell you the story. And he said to me like this, Rabbi Gazinski told me that while he was dead and he was in the heavenly court, and in the trip and in the tour and all that, he said people were praying for me. And in the other world, I heard every word and every voice of prayer that was said for my recovery. So that is a vital message about our prayers. They get all the way up there and they have a powerful effect, especially Tehillim. Now, there are two questions that come up at this point before the ending. One of them is, well, most of us, by the time we find out what's important and what we should do or should have done or whatever, so what about all the years that already passed? What do we do about that? So here is a story, very short and very different, about a young woman who became very ill and died and came back. And she says that when she died, she went to the other world and she met an old man. It's interesting how every story has something different to it. Or at least I pick the ones that are that way. Because some of them are boring. So this young woman died and she went up there and she meets an old man in the white robes with a long white beard, the works. And the old man is holding in his hands a book. And in that world, you know, without anybody telling you. So the young woman says, I understood the book the old man is holding is the book of my life. So instead of seeing the movie of her life, she meets the book. She sees the old man holding the book of her life. So thought mind to mind, because in that world you don't speak, you think, and the other person hears you. A little bit scary, but that's the way it's there. I thought to the old man, I thought to him, can I see the book? And the old man smiled and handed me the book, and I opened it, and it was white pages written with gold ink, and I'm starting to read, and I said, oh yeah, I remember this. Oh yeah, I remember that. This is my life. Yeah, it's true. And then I noticed that on a few of the pages, there were entire sections missing, paragraphs that were gone, deleted. So I look up and I question the old man, and I think to the old man, but why are these paragraphs deleted? And the old man smiles again, and he says to me, those were things you did that were wrong, but you took steps to correct them. You decided you're not doing those things again. And so they were deleted.
Wow.
They're gone. That's what we in Hebrew call teshuvah. Now this woman was not even Jewish, okay? I got her from somewhere else. Because I did not interview her, I just got her story from somewhere else. So regardless of religion and belief system and everything, when we realize that we did something wrong, we did it once or 1,000 times, and we say, okay, I'm not doing that again, and if you can fix it, you fix it, then it's deleted, and that's great. So we have discussed the power of love and kindness, the power of learning Torah, the power of doing teshuvah, the power of prayer. Should we finish now, or should we have one more?
Forgiving.
The power of forgiveness. I'm very tempted. I know I went over time. There was this girl who had a 13th birthday. On her 13th birthday, she did, like 13-year-olds do, a stupid thing. But her stupid thing was too stupid. She had a party with her friends and her parents, and at the end, after the cake, her parents said, okay, we're going out now, and you keep on playing games with your friends. So the parents left, and they left the 13-year-old and the other kids her age in the house, and the girl announced to her friends, every night my father takes a drink of alcohol. Now that I am 13, I am no longer a child, I will drink alcohol too. So she took a very large cup, filled it to the brim with gin, and gulped it down at once. And very shortly after, she fell dead on the ground. And she came out of her body, of course, and she was met by an angel. The angel said, come, we're going. And she said, going where? It's my birthday party. And the angel says, no, you're dead. You need to come with me. She says, I'm not going with you. I need to get back in my body. I'm in my birthday party. I'm 13 years old. And the angel says, that body is too damaged to go back in. You cannot inhabit that body. It's been far too damaged. And the 13-year-old girl, who just did a very stupid thing, now did a very smart thing, and she said to the angel, nothing is impossible for God. And she got to live. Look at her faith. Nothing is impossible for God. And she went back in her body. Mind you, she was in a coma for a few days, but she did survive, and she was okay. So we're going to end now. Now we saw the power of faith as well, with my personal experience, because that's going to come up in the questions. Did you have a personal experience? Thank God I didn't die. I had another personal experience that's also very powerful. When my father passed away, and I was very close to my father, and he died suddenly and unexpectedly, so I felt that I had no closure. So on the 30th day, when we went to the Shloshim, when we went to the cemetery and prayed, after everyone left, I stayed next to his grave, and I was alone, and I told him, I said, I don't know if this is possible, and I don't know if they will allow you, but I would like to see you again. One more time. Now, you're not allowed to do this, so don't do it. Because once a soul is departed, we're supposed to allow them to rest. Coming back to the physical world just to say hi to us is a big trouble for the soul, and we're not supposed to disturb them. But I didn't know that, so I asked him. I expected to have a dream that night because I had heard stories of people who had dreams and they saw a grandparent or somebody. Okay, so I expected a story. I expected a dream, and I went to sleep, and there was no dream. And one night, 2 nights, 3, no dream. I gave up. This is not happening. I had small children in those days. I was very busy, and I just gave up on the whole thing, and I forgot about it. And 2 or 3 months passed. We were living in Vancouver in those days, and a rabbi from Los Angeles, Rabbi Reichik, Alav Shalom, Rabbi Shmuel David Reichik, Alav Shalom, he came to speak to us in Vancouver. And he had an evening for the men and an evening for the ladies. And on this evening for the ladies, there was a large group like here of ladies, and we were sitting in a U shape of chairs, and I was sitting about the center, and the rabbi sitting opposite me, many feet away. The room had a very high ceiling, and in the middle of the rabbi's talk, my father came in. He had passed away a couple months before. When I saw him at first, I was, very emotional because he had passed away, and and I was looking for the closure and everything. I was very emotional. I felt tears going down my cheeks. Nobody knew why. Maybe they thought I was moved by the rabbi's speech. I don't know. But I was seeing my father very, very clearly, just as he looked when he was alive, just at all the way in the other end of the room. And I knew that if I got up and went across the room and stretched out my hand, that there was nothing to touch. I knew that. And when I sort of calmed down, my father spoke to me again, mind to mind, and he said to me, called me by my name, and he said, Nomi, do as many mitzvahs as you can, because Mashiach is coming soon. That was his message, that I should do as many mitzvahs as I can. There were a couple people who had near-death experiences, and when they found themselves in front of the loving, living light that they realized is the Creator, they were asked a question. The question was, imagine the infinite loving light asking you, what did you do with the life I gave you? That was the question. And I like to live my life asking myself every day that question. What did I do today with the privilege that God gave me to live this life? What did I do today to serve my higher purpose? So I'm leaving you with those words to remember the question, what did you do with the life I gave you? And with my father's message, do as many mitzvahs as you can, because Mashiach is coming soon. Thank you. Amen.